This is a dungeon. Or more accurately, it's a room in a dungeon. It's a place where foes can draw blades. Nemesis can finally settle the score. Puzzles can be solved. Lovers' quarrels can be settled. So many things can happen in one room. Now, dungeons can be used for a wide variety of things. In their most basic form, they're an avenue basically just for the adventurers to go down into, slay a bunch of monsters, gain loot, and solve puzzles. And honestly, they're a lot of fun for doing that. I myself do enjoy a session where I just get to kick down the door and kill a bunch of things in a single room every now and then. Not often, but every once in a while, I just want a session like that because it's been a rough day and I want to relax. But at the same time, dungeons can be more than that. They can be an avenue to introduce new elements into your plot, as well as various elements into your general world, and well, you can create a lot of dynamic and interesting things within a dungeon. But at the same time, how do you design one? How do you design one to be both interesting, realistic, and, well, not feel tedious? And for that, my friends, we don't really need to look that much further than the Legend of Zelda series. Now, Zelda is not a perfect example for this because there are a few stumbles along the way with some of their dungeon designs. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that. But if there's anything that we can take from them is the overall design philosophy, because every Zelda dungeon has a similar vibe into how they are structured. There are a few big things you need to keep in mind for dungeon design. One is realism. Make the dungeon feel realistic. If you're in a house, make it feel like a house. If you're in a big, sprawling temple, make it feel like a temple and ask who built it and why. There's a dozen reasons as to why there are so many Zelda theory channels out there digging deep into the potential lore of the dungeons and going into them. Shadow Temple actually tells a fantastic story, and if you dive into it, it gets incredibly dark with Zelda lore. But the big thing that all Zelda dungeons have is progression. Making the player feel like they are always progressing forward. And you can do this in a wide variety of ways. By having a map laid out before you, one that makes sense, the players will be able to keep track of it themselves. They can be aware of everything that's going on within the dungeon, and potentially maybe have a single chamber. Dodongo's Cavern, I think, is an excellent example of this, where the players can go into one direction and then to another, but then are always drawn back to the main chamber. And as they progress throughout the dungeon, small elements of the main chamber changes over the course of their exploration. This gives the player a sense of accomplishment, that they are moving forward and that they'll want to keep going forward because they have that sense of accomplishment. Perhaps they come across a locked door at some point. Well, they'll know that they can either try and picklock it, and if they case they do, allow it, unless it's a very specific key, in which case that means that they know somewhere, most likely on this level, they'll be able to find that key. Again, giving the sense of exploration and going into another room and not a ton of backtracking. So if you're going to do backtracking, which Zelda dungeons honestly do, limit it. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like the water temple, is that you had to keep track of the water levels, and there was also a lot of backtracking. Which again, the water temple, with how complex it was, made a lot of people would not really like it. Keep it simple. You can have it be big and sprawling, but simplicity in how the players move forward. Make it feel like the players will always be able to progress in some capacity. They just need to look a little harder and tell a story along the way. Have clues embedded throughout the entirety of the dungeon, be it to the story or to solve different things. And then when a player realizes that the solution to the puzzle is just a few doors down, they can go, look, take notes, and then come back and they'll feel accomplished. And honestly, this is a lot of things that Zelda dungeons do. They will have clues to puzzles, you just need to look around for them. And yes, Baldur's Gate 3 also did this exceptionally well. You can also take notes from how they did their dungeons, and it'll work just as well. So yeah, ultimately for better dungeons, the best way to do it is to just, well, Keep it simple. Have a constant sense of progression for the players, and then embed a story into it. Want to keep it mysterious? You absolutely can. If you want to hint at future plot points, go ahead and do so. And with that, it will create a dungeon that is dynamic, interesting, has a fun story, and ultimately, well, will be easy to track. And so with that, everyone, happy dungeon crawling. As always, keep being awesome. Keep rolling those dice. Cheers.